Hey, warriors. So I'm going to say something and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Actually, I think I'm done sugarcoating anything at this point. When an empath actually heals, you know, when they integrate their shadow, regulate their nervous system, and they stop abandoning themselves, they don't become dangerous, to good people. They become dangerous to, manipulators. And I think that's why some people get real uncomfortable really fast. You understand? Um, there's this fantasy version of empaths that's floating around, spiritual spaces. Always forgiving, always understanding, always giving, always available. You know, that version of the empath, that's not enlightenment. That's unhealed survival. Most empaths didn't, become empathic because life was gentle, you know? They became empathic because they had to read the room to survive. People's tones, their moods, their energy, their intent. Empaths are trained, plain and simple observers, long before, they ever call it a gift, I guess. Do you know what I mean? And that matters a lot because observation turns into fucking mastery. Plain and simple. Um, Here's the part, that's whatever. Anyway, empaths, they study people for years. And not to become a manipulator or anything like that, but they need to understand, predict, and they need to stay safe. You know, you've been, if you're an empath, you've been watching patterns your entire life. You know when people are lying, when they're shifting, when someone's about to fucking flip the script on you. You know, you just, I guess at one point, us empaths used to ignore it, you know? Um, I don't know, but healing, and I'm not saying, I guess what I'm trying to say is healing doesn't give you new abilities, okay? Um, healing gives you permission to trust what you already know. You understand? Um, like shadow integration. It doesn't make you cruel, but it does change you in a lot of different ways. It makes you the person who doesn't explain themselves anymore. You know, you don't negotiate your boundaries like you used to. You stop offering emotional access to motherfuckers who haven't earned it. You know, um, you stop reacting. You stop defending. You stop proving. And people who relied, I guess, on your confusion or your guilt or your overgiving, they don't like that, obviously. Do you know what I mean? That silence feels like a damn threat, you know? Not because you're attacking, but because they can't reach you anymore. Plain and simple. Let's call it what it is, Manipulators, they need people's predictable reactions. They need your self doubt, if you will. I don't know. A healed empath, I guess, gives them none of those things anymore. You know, you don't argue anymore. You don't explain. You don't collapse. You see them for who and what they really are. You know, and there's nothing more, I guess, destabilizing to someone who lives in control than being clear, being seen clearly and not engaged. It's awesome. It's very powerful. Um, that's why they say, to people like us who are empaths and we've healed, they say things like, you've changed, you're different, you're not who you used to be. Yeah, you're fucking damn right I'm not, you know? And thank God for that, if you will, Um, and let me be clear too, you're not dangerous because you want to hurt people. You're dangerous because you don't fall for that emotional bait anymore. You don't confuse empathy with access. You understand? Well, I mean, if you are, a healed empath, I guess you do understand. But you don't, mistake guilt for love like you used to. Your presence alone exposes, dynamics that used to run quietly. There is a cost, though, when you've healed. There are, people start to fall away. Some of your relationships, they collapse. Some dynamics die without any closure. And yeah, suck as that may, but it's not because you failed. It's because the version of you they benefited from no longer exists. I don't know. This phase feels lonely. It feels quiet and it feels almost anticlimactic, That's not lost though. This is where your stability comes in, you know? Um, I don't know. So if you're an empath and you're noticing, like that you just have fewer things to fucking say, you know, less tolerance for nonsense, more peace, even if it's quiet, you know, you didn't become dangerous like the internet is saying. I mean, if that's what you're dangerous, towards the wrong people, if, I don't know, but, you became sovereign. And the only people who fear sovereign beings, I guess, are the ones who relied on control. You know what I mean? Let the motherfuckers panic. As far as I'm concerned, you're not here to be safe for everyone. You're here to be true. So fuck them. I love you.